Okay, so today for part two of Simon Nott Zooms In, I'm delighted to be joined once again by Matthew Trenhaile, affectionately known as Trench. I thought I bagged him for the racecourse community back in the summer, but you've been on the missing list, Trench, from the racecourse. Is it the cold weather that puts you off?
Or yeah, I suppose there probably is a little bit of the fair weather attendee element to me. Um, but no, I think there's also a part of getting a bit busier, which is is good for me in another sense. But yeah, not as many not as many free options at the weekend. Plus, yeah, it seems that somehow my wife figured out that racing seems to take a whole day if one goes to it. I think her comment was, "It's worse than golf," which is, that's quite the slander, I'd say. So yeah, it's been tough, but hopefully when the weather improves, I'll be able to convince her to let me back out again.
Yeah, come on, Mrs. Trench. We loved having Mr. Trench on course. So you've been busy what with your business Anubis or hunting?
Pr Almost all, I mean, I'd say very, very limited betting at the moment. Pretty much all dedicated to the business and just trying to help people as best I can navigate the trading and risk space within bookmaking predominantly. So I've done probably a lot more work with bookmakers and a lot more sort of in the up and coming category. The likes of Flutter, whatever, 40 billion company now. Can't imagine they'll be giving me a call anytime soon. I think they probably feel they've got it by the bollocks. But yeah, some of the younger lot, they fancy trying different things and so on. So yeah, it's been good.
Oh, good stuff. And I'll just before we get on to the what we want to talk about in a minute, I've noticed that you've disappeared from Twitter X. Have you fallen out with Elon Musk?
No, no. Well, it sounds ridiculous to say, but just enjoyed it. So I'd been off and on a bit, but I'd come back recently for I suppose over a bit over a year or something like that. Um, I'll be honest, just enjoy it too much a little bit, really. It just completely. I'm very easy. I'm sort of quite an obsessive person, so I very easily get sucked into these things. Um, and yeah, I was just spending hours a day on it. And yeah, there's a great meme of a picture of a man at a computer and his wife at the doorway, and she's saying, "You coming to the bed?" And he's saying, "Just 1 minute. There's someone being wrong on the internet. I need to correct," or something to that effect. And while I tried to be less in that category in my most recent stint, I just you know you go down the rabbit hole and you start scrolling, and yeah, it was just it was detrimental to I suppose getting work done. So I thought to myself, have a little step back. But yeah, I think previously I tried to tell myself I will never be back. This time I came off, there was no pretense at that. I will be back, but probably once I've actually been at the coalface and done some proper work a bit before coming back.
Excellent. So, I mean, the last time I actually saw you in person was I think it was Ascot, wasn't it? You came to one of the off
Yeah, yeah,
Ascots.
yeah.
So any developments, any observations that you'd like to sort of talk about? I mean, this is just an informal catch up, so the world is your oyster, as they say.
Yeah, well, it's funny because you reached out to me to do this, which I was very excited to do because I've always been a huge fan of your content, and was very excited to hear that you were doing your own project. Um, and it was funny because it was not that long after the latest Patrick Veach interview had hit the airwaves, and your website. There's a few podcasts. That I would say are regularly listened, consistently listened to by sort of my circles, and in particular the sort of the serious betting category circles, and your interviews have always been one of them. And it was funny because like normally, you know, there'll be a comment like, "Oh, has anyone listened to this?" Like, "Oh, it was interesting. Do you hear they said that? What do you think they mean by that?" kind of thing. Anyway, very soon after the Patrick Veach installment number three, there was a message, and I have actually got them written down here. Let me just pull. So, um, lol. Veach thinks you can just go to Hong Kong and turn on the cash machine. That was one of them. This is the one out that this person, if they listen to this, that I'm afraid I'm stealing this. But uh, Jelko and the boys must absolutely be delighted at the prospect of putting Peach's pants in their trophy room in reference to the having someone's pants down reference used in betting. And then, more sort of, I suppose, like, well, there's probably someone said like, oh, there's probably an adjustment, but it's still horse racing, isn't it? And then someone chimed in with, yeah, but you're up against a different pool of people when you're betting into these kind of pools. This isn't taking Denise's money, reference to the lovely Mrs. Coates and her operation. So yeah, but it was interesting because normally everyone kind of aligned. You would have thought that bookmakers being bettors, professional bettors being contrarians, there'd be a lot of disagreement. But in a lot of things, sort of everyone's in alignment. But this generated genuine back and forth. Um, and he's also, he's a character with his own mythology around him, isn't he? He's obviously got a reputation. And so yeah, so I was sort of I thought to myself, well, this might be fun for us to sort of talk about because I think you'll I mean just for starters, you've been around horse racing for many years and spoken to a wide range of punters. And you'll have spoken to people who literally won't bet on the flat. They'll bet only on the jumps, for example. Or you've probably met people who like prefer to bet on maidens or only handicaps. I think horse racing attracts specialism in possibly a way that no other sport does, when it comes to punting. So it feels justified to be able to say, well, Hong Kong's not like, Hexham or whatever, that I get what people say about that. Um, but I think one of the old phrase that people would often say is, "Oh, it's tough to beat the machine." So tough to beat Betfair, making a living on Betfair, and Betfair is sort of an aggregated pool of, in theory, the smartest views on any given sport. And these big pools in Tokyo and Hong Kong and France, etc. There's such a good amount of money to be made from them, it will attract the best of the best. And so you are playing into a pool where your money is sitting next to the Jelcos of this world and all the offshoots of the Woods groups and, all these other people. So, it's very sort of glaringly obvious that you're trying to take money off. Everyone's trying to take money off the great pools of, fun money that, is in Hong Kong. But you are, for what meat there is on the bone, got some serious competition. So yeah, so I think everyone was sort of delighted and interested to hear, Patrick decide that this was something that he was going to tackle after many years of obviously not tackling it.
Not just
Many.
dived in though, has he? He's been studying it for 12 months and not had a penny on yet.
And didn't he? I don't know. Did he say 3 years? He's been looking at data or
Oh, I,
something. I
I, I don't know. He might have done, but I mean, I know he's not. Well, from what he told me, he's not invested yet. I mean, he's probably doing the deepest deep dive into Hong Kong racing. He wouldn't have done. He wouldn't have sort of just skidded into it, would he?
Yeah, no, absolutely. As I say, very I I get the impression, obviously, someone who's achieved great success. And I think he quite rightly. I mean, obviously, I would suggest that he doesn't necessarily need the income. Um, so there's as much it's I think someone like him, he always strikes me as someone who's trying to test himself and challenge himself. And so I think that if you are going to try and get yourself out of your comfort zone, because he probably knows UK horse racing, as well as anyone ever, um, it seems like, he could have like, oh, I'm going to set up a restaurant, in London or whatever. That when people do that, I always find it interesting when very successful people decide to completely just go off the map. It's like, well, I'm very good at, you know, designing software, so I think I'll become a farmer now. And I was excellent at the old thing, so I'll probably be excellent at the new thing. And I always find that quite jarring when people do that. But in this case, he's not making a huge departure. He's just, taking a little adjacent step. Um, and yeah, it got me thinking. These people sort of like there were groups of people I was speaking to who were very much like it's completely different. You know, one's fixed odds, one's pool betting. You know, what the pools, it's about, you've got to think not just about evaluating the race, but who you're betting against and all the rest of it. And I thought to myself, well, let's, step back. You still got to evaluate the chance of a horse winning a race. That's still where it comes down to. And one thing that I don't know if you picked up, well, you did pick up on it actually because you mentioned it, but I always thought that Patrick was more trying to land a big coup, at a track or via, you know, I suppose various runners or commission agents. But he alluded to the fact that he does quite a lot on Betfair. And I never really thought of Patrick as being heavily on the machine. And he also implied quite a level of automation, I think, maybe with the Betfair stuff when you spoke to me. So I think you even asked him, "Oh, can you just leave that running?" kind of thing. Um, which I don't think of Patrick, not because he's not capable. He did maths at Cambridge, I believe, but I don't think of him as the model. I think of him as the person I think of him more as a tape watcher, the classic, sort of race watcher style. So I was
He's
very
gone back to
interested.
that, hasn't he? He said that he's gone back to that from the algorithms. The edge now is to watch the tapes and see what the algorithms don't see in the other modelers. I think that's what he said he's done in recent times.
Yeah, well, I mean, I thought I thought he was the kind of person who'd always been preying on the models, if you like. But I'm sure he's had many different, he's got longevity, right? So I'm sure he's had many different strategies. But I was intrigued to know that he'd sort of gone heavy modeling at some point. But the key thing, I mean, the Hong Kong problem or any large parimutuel pool things is that people are doing both. So, Tony Bloom at Star Lizard has two teams. He has the people who do the models. He has people who watch football and understand football. People, Jelko, from my understanding, not only collects every data point under the sun that's, widely available, but also he has people watching all the video, creating new data points and creating new, anything that's in the public domain will be eroded over time. So you need to collect your own data. You need to have your own database with your own features, as they call them in the model, that are different from anyone else's. And that's what made me think that, so, you know, even if Patrick didn't have this specific skill set for modeling, he could easily work with someone who could build, if we go all the way back, there was a paper, so Bentner's sort of chief model, I think, guy called, I don't know if this is his real name or just what the paper, there's a paper you could read, CX Wong, where it describes Bentner's original models for the Hong Kong pools. And, and that's evolved, but a lot of the evolution of those models has been documented in various places. So I don't doubt that either Patrick himself or someone else can provide that raw model framework. However, is that enough to win? Well, I don't think it's enough to win even for the big groups because they moved on to doing a lot of tape watching and creating features about, I think someone told me that there's, people who even created a sweat rating, like the amount the horse was sweating up so that you could observe, historic video and you could see how much the horse was worked up. And the race watchers would have to give a number that sort of would say how worked up the horse was before the race. And you can get clever, video analysis that will do little pinpoints on the horse's shoulder. It's, I suppose the equivalent of the thigh, the foreleg, etc. And you can see as the horse moves, these little points update. So they're monitoring how the horse walks, and they have videotape that watch them run. So we can look at stride length, all these things. So all this data that maybe is not just sort of easily classifiable in a simple number normally is now becoming classifiable. People are watching it. So can Patrick do that? Absolutely. Patrick's watched races before. I'm sure Patrick can add all of that to the mix. So then people were saying, and he gave an implication in the interview that he has the way to get the money into the pools. So let's not, as in efficiently get the money into the pool. It's not just about getting it in, it's about getting it in right at the last millisecond in the right size. So let's assume that's the problem. So then it comes like, well, what's Patrick's edge going to be? And I said, and I always sound a bit sort of woo-woo when I say this, but when he watches a race, someone who's watched thousands and thousands of hours of racing, it's not so much, if you asked him, Patrick, can you watch this race? Can you just watch only for any jockeys that, have the whip in the wrong hand at some point. Like you can ask him to look for something very specific and he can point that out, but that's not the value. The value for someone like Patrick is be able to watch a race, and this is my guessing. He is free to contact me and correct me if I'm wrong, but watching the race from start to finish and being able to just contextualize everything. When we talk about contextual, collateral form in horse racing, basically, what does winning, a class 6 handicap at Wolverhampton, compare to finishing fourth in a group 3 at Ascot? Where, how do you compare things that aren't like with like? Well, I think a really good analytical brain, which clearly Patrick does have, when he watches a race, he is seeing when the horse is blocked. He's seeing when the jockey makes a mistake. He's seeing that gate opened a bit too slowly. He's seeing, the ground here, even though the official ground is here, there's a lot of spray coming up. So maybe that part of the course was overly warning. And I don't think he ever writes all these things down probably in a million different, ways. It doesn't have like 84 boxes with little numbers that he puts them in. I think you can probably get to the end and it's like this horse SP was 10-1. Did it run like 10-1? Did it run like 6-1? Did it run like 16-1? How did it run? And I think he could probably, in a horse race, look at all the horses and say whether the horse ran better than its odds, regardless of whether it won. This is the thing, we can all see horses that win or place, but seeing if a horse that finished sixth actually ran really well, but just had trouble, and being able to see trouble that isn't hard to quantify or observe that. So I think, we understand he's gone and, not put a penny in yet, done a lot of looking at it. There are, a number of races that are reasonable to watch, right? Hong Kong doesn't race every day. There is, a finite number of races that he could look back, and he doesn't need to look back forever. Races that were run 10 years ago, probably less, not relevant now. Certainly not the horses won't be the same, but, what you pick up. So he's probably able to watch every race, probably be able to see running styles, the nature of the courses, etc. And he's probably able to literally rate every horse's run. And it's a rating that doesn't come from, by weight. It's not a top speed. It's a rating that is just the PV value, the Patrick Veach value of how that horse, and those ratings combined will then allow him to create a tissue, his own handicap ratings that are based off his amalgamated brain. Now he may say to me like, no, we just collect a load of data, we jump into this big computer model and that's what we do. But I'd be surprised if that was the case. And I think you brought up the subject of, how should we say, trainer instructions, maybe, is that fair? Or certain strategies in Hong Kong that manifest themselves? Maybe some horses not winning when they should, this kind of, I don't want to make, allegations, but,
I'm not sure if that was me actually, but
oh,
sounds a bit too intelligent a question for me.
well, I'm not, well, I think there was, this idea that, there may be, I suppose, layers of politics behind the scenes within the Hong Kong racing, so that sort of may produce the odd bizarre result, shall we say. And I thought, well, that's just the kind of area where models can get run over, because, that is about analyzing human motivation for certain things. I always remember one of the greatest gambling scenes in any movie, of course, Disney's classic Lady and the Tramp, where they go to the race course and bet on the horses. Not Lady and the Tramp, All Dogs Go to Heaven, I want to say. Anyway, the idea is that there's one horse, this complete donkey, and it's his birthday. So all the other horses make sure that the donkey wins on its birthday. And I always use this as the example of something that a model couldn't possibly pick up unless you were thinking to put all the horses' birthdays into the model, kind of thing. But yeah, but there undoubtedly will be things that I think someone who watches all the races will be able to spot, when certain conditions arise that are related maybe to strategy or these kind of things that are hard to pinpoint.
Matthew, I just want to jump in a minute. The people that are messaging you, I'm assuming it's fellow sort of professional punters, betting academics, whatever. Are these people scared to jump into Hong Kong and they're sort of a bit worried that they might be that Patrick might do it and succeed? and they haven't, or they haven't dared dip their toe in, or are there people that are making it pay themselves over there? Or I assume it's a mixture of all sorts of people.
Yeah, so no interestingly, of all the people on the chat, there was no one there who has done the sort of the pools at scale. You need to have a rebate agreement, these infamous rebate agreements whereby, you get paid for volume put into the pool. Um, and I'm not very familiar with this space, but my understanding is that, you know, you don't just rock up and ask for this necessarily, or it's not just, a box that you can tick on a form kind of thing. Um, so I think, maybe there is a certain amount of volume required before one can earn it, or maybe you have to have a certain relationship. Um, so yeah, so I don't know. I know people who have found ways to bet fixed odds into Hong Kong, um, or via I suppose, the Singapore sort of Asian exchange city bet, which people may have heard of, sort of this Betfair alike type exchange that has mysterious lumps of money that appear and disappear in various races, but done that, but no one who's sort of really tackled it in that way. But everyone feels like because they've heard about other big syndicates in that realm, that they sort of feel like they know the lie of the land there. Um, and I think, to be honest, most of the people I speak to, a lot of them are in the sort of the middle range rather than the big syndicate range. And a lot of them have been very successful by picking their spots, and so much of picking their spots, much like poker, is picking which table to sit down at. Like you don't want to you want to sit down with the drunk businessman. You don't want to sit down with the top players in the world. And so they've been very good at sort of finding little, niches, whether it's, bookmakers giving away stupid promos in the States or a new market, or whether it's, certain sports that they can get on in betting terminals in France or something stupid, like all these little sort of, they're just making sure that, yes, they've got an edge in calculating odds, but let's play a bit of a bit more unfair game on the operator. Let's try and find a little edge on top of the edge of just coming up with the odds. So those are the kind of people that mostly I get the chance to speak to, all very clever people. And they often just observe that they feel and they're right, and that one of the huge edges for pools betting is the rebate. But yeah, I think that just the assumption is that, you know, there's definitely some there is some awaited Schadenfreude here. But I don't, if Patrick doesn't succeed, I don't know how easy it would be to find out if he didn't succeed. But yeah, I sort of found myself, when I saw the evidence was kind of, people were generally saying, oh, he's going to struggle with this or whatever. I found myself wanting to cheer him on a little bit because, it's not often. I mean, who would have thought that anyone would ever consider Patrick Veach an underdog at anything? I mean, and yeah, he may not be able to scale it to the size that some of the syndicates have been doing it for many years. But yeah, and I'm not being funny. If I was someone who'd achieved his success in backing horses, be a bit insulted if someone told me that I wouldn't be able to find success backing horses, even if it is in another country. But yeah, I just found it so. I think, as I was, as I say, that there are people out there who like look at their results and say, I can't win on the all weather. I'm just not going to do it. And it's like, so these are people who even within UK racing only have found an area that they feel is not good enough. So I think people automatically feel that it's not a given, even if the racing differences are small, it's not a given that your skill set will translate from one to the other. But I think comparing Patrick to the average professional, even the average horse player, never mind, the average professional horse player, he's definitely an outlier already in that category. So yeah, but yeah, well, hopefully, your new series, you'll get him in for part 4 at some point. Definitely, a year in, be fantastic to hear what he has to say. Or maybe, I mean, I don't know whether you're plugging. You and him have that. You've been involved with some of the race share stuff. And I heard him talk. I've got some race share shares, and I heard him talking about it. I love that he got involved in that. I think that's really really fascinating. But yeah, maybe you can convince him in a year's time to give a little presentation to some of the race shareholders of Patrick's first year in Hong Kong. A summary.
Okay, so
I don't know how much he is for public speaking, to be quite honest, but
we'll reconvene, Matthew. So we're going to bring this to an end now. On the spot, egg on the face of the professional punters. How does Matthew Trenhaile bet Patrick Veach's success in Hong Kong?
sorry, what
How,
was that?
how do you price it up? Are these
Oh,
professional punters that message you going to end up with egg on their faces, or is he
I,
going to chop it off?
I think will he be profitable first 12 months? I'm going to go 3 on. Will he be successful? Will he make money long term? Any money? I'm going to chalk that up, put 5 on. First year may be tough, things to work out, nuances, maybe a few races where he takes a big hit, learning things. 5 on. Will he make enough money for it to be really dramatically interesting for him? As in, will he be able to reach the heights of the other syndicates who've done it? That's back down. It'd be hard to ever, people like the Woods Groups and the Gelcos. They don't give up their edges. These people literally, even though they've made phenomenal amounts of money, they're still iterating. They're still making better models. They're still hiring more people, still getting more PhDs. So, they don't lie down and let you take the money off them. So the idea that he'll ever reach sort of their levels, that's probably a shade of odds against. Maybe even a 3-1 shot that he ever could achieve that. And he may not have the aspiration to be that big in it as a market. But yeah, I'm definitely going odds on year one and probably quite strong odds on after 5 years if he commits to it that he'll turn a profit. It's just how sexy that profit will be because having gone for many years where you're making proper money, if you get to the end of your Hong Kong year and you've made 50 grand and you've had to really bleed for it, yeah, who knows? Although having said that, he seems to like a challenge, so who knows? Maybe that would just spur him on even more. But yeah, I love that you've put me. People are going to laugh. I'm almost certain people will laugh their heads off at my odds I've given there. I have strong opinions. That's good. Hopefully, they will reply to you and give their opinions on
Let's
those
hope so. Get
prices.
a bit of traction, and hopefully, I might even hear from the man himself. Right, the final thing before we go: what price you've been on the race course before the Epsom Derby?
What price? Oh, I mean, I bloody hope so. Yeah, bloody hope so. Yeah, let's 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 put me up at got to be 4 on or something to
Good man.
get out there before then.
Good man. Well, I look forward to seeing you, Matthew. It's always a pleasure, and this has been fantastic. So, thank you very much for giving up your time for free to do this, and hopefully see you on the turf very soon.
Absolute pleasure. Hope to see many more of these to come, Simon.
Thank you, Matthew.